The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi everyone, Macca 19 here, and you are listening to the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio. And look, joining me once again as co-host, we got Fishing Rick. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, Macca. What about yourself?
Oh, not
too
too
bit
bad.
Sad.
Very
Little
sad.
bit sad. It's a sad time.
Indeed.
I did
Gonna
miss
be
you
a,
last week too.
Yeah, well, understandable. I am very
with
missable.
Yeah, you are. You're missable, and you know you're like a monk. You're like a saint. Saint Macca of Port Adelaide. That's what you should
Monk
be.
Macca. That's good.
Who's our guest?
Our guest is Bomberclifford. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this pretty sad occasion. I guess it would be pretty remiss if we didn't start with what is one of the most tragic stories in probably Australian sport history, really. You know, the horrific killing of Crows coach and former Port Adelaide assistant coach Phil Walsh. He did spend 11 seasons at Alberton, so Port Adelaide and Philip Walsh went very much hand in hand for a very long time. As we know, he was an assistant for our premiership year in 2004. And, so many players talk of him as one of their greatest influences, especially through the midfield. Lads, I'm not even sure where to start with this. It's just such a senseless tragedy.
It's a tough one. As I was saying before, like it just having to think about the game that was happened Thursday night. It's so hard to go past that moment on Friday morning when you first heard the news. It's still quite surreal, actually.
It's a travesty, and or tragedy even. And I put it up there with the tragedy of Phil Hughes. Different circumstances, but still a tragedy nonetheless. And a person who's been cut down in his prime and living life to the fullest, and and a family that's torn apart. And I think we're caught up in the sporting sense of it, but it's a societal issue, and everyone's hurting at this point in time. But hopefully his death will have some meaning over time through education and awareness, which is where the AFL is fantastic, bringing awareness and issues in society to people's forefront. And I don't know what the reasons are at this point in time, but I'm sure it will come out, and we can learn from it.
Yep, we certainly could. Look, he came to our club in 1999. He was obviously great friends with Choco. He played with played at Collingwood with Choco. He moved to Brisbane with him in '87. It was pretty sad when he left our club the first time. He had a little bit of a falling out with Choco, I think, and it was pretty frustrating when he left the second time. But I'm really glad he got the chance to coach a club in his own right, even if it was at Adelaide. And I guess it sounds a bit cliche, but if anyone deserved it, it was going to be a man with such fantastic knowledge and nous for the game as Phil did.
Yeah, it was good watching over the weekend all of those montages of him and his history, and hearing Choco talk about him. I've only ever known him as the assistant coach. I didn't really remember him as a player, and so it was good to sort of see those memories being replayed again.
Well, he was the Brisbane Bears inaugural best and fairest winner, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He won the Rising Star in '83.
It was an interesting career, though, wasn't it? Because for a long time, a lot of supporters thought that he didn't really want to be the main coach, and he didn't like the media. But when he got the opportunity, he was sort of flourishing. And how much of a debate has there been this season from a Port Adelaide perspective on how much we've missed him tactically? So he was renowned for being a tactical genius, and I guess, unfortunately, we haven't been able to see the full fruition of that. So it sucks, but like everything, time heals all wounds, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you just feel great pain for Meredith and Quinn and all their sort of extended family who in one fell swoop they've lost half their family and their husband and life partner and essentially the son and brother in just a moment of madness. I mean, it's hard to even grasp what's actually occurred. And as you said, Nick, it still feels so surreal and actually feels like the game from Thursday night feels about a month ago.
Yeah, it does. It certainly doesn't seem like it was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
It's also pretty sad. I mean, it's Phil Walsh gone. There's Dean Bailey gone from that fantastic coaching group that we had in 2004. Choco got diagnosed with cancer. I mean, it's almost like a bit of a curse.
Are they cursed because they left?
Possibly.
I think it's more a signature of their characteristics more than anything. They're all very, very intense individuals, aren't
Very
they?
intense dudes, yeah.
So maybe they're too intense for their own good, and that in turn has led to these guys, I don't know, having a bit of stress on their bodies or whatever. I mean, Phil, I don't know, who knows? If Phil's intensity was his downfall either, who bloody knows? And it's not for me to judge or even interfere. I don't really want to know. So, but yeah, Dean Bailey was a tragedy, and at least Choco is fighting for another day, which is fantastic news.
His interview the other night was heartbreaking. It was. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff that was really tugging at the emotions, but it wasn't until I saw him talk about Walsh that it really hammered home.
He had to stop a couple of times, and you could tell it was absolutely shattering for Choco.
Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified what was tugging there too, Nick. You had to be concerned for
I was a big fan of Choco, but not that much.
Sorry, I had to alleviate it. We're down. We're on a downer, and we need to. We can't be on too much of a downer for too long because this isn't depressing radio, I guess. But it is. It's just not good at the moment, is it? That's the problem.
Well, it's not, and I guess the next point is how do you feel this is going to affect our club going forward in the next few weeks?
I think it could be... Oh, sorry, Nick. I was just going to say, I think it could be another bonding and wake-up call for the boys. I think it's not to diminish the Crows' bond with Phil Walsh, but I guess there's a lot of people at the footy club that probably knew Phil Walsh a lot deeper at Port Adelaide than at the Crows. So the Weagles is another one as well. So obviously he spent 5 years there too. So I'd say the boys will be quite unified by this, and maybe it might give them a little bit of a wake-up call and jolt them into second gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of tell because it's the McCarthy, when the McCarthy tragedy happened, it was after the season. They had their grieving process outside of the football season. So having to continue on as a professional footballer and have to deal with this grief would be phenomenally difficult. And that regardless of which club you're at, whether you're a Port player, Crows player, Eagles player. Because he seemed to be that kind of coach that really, really got in with the players. You know, reading Dom's article and hearing the snippets from Kane, he was obviously a big part of their football lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the advantage we have though is Phil left to coach the Crows, obviously. So we've lost a friend. The players would have lost a friend, but they wouldn't have been with him day to day anymore, and that's where I guess for the Crows it's a lot more difficult. They would have formed this bond with them over the last 9 months and been in their pockets day in, day out, and all of a sudden he's not there and they've lost their leader, whereas for us he was no longer operations man, so he was a good friend. So we might be able. Just guessing here, but I'm thinking we might be able to regain our resolve a little bit easier and focus. Whereas the Crows, it might be a lot more difficult because he was their man.
Yeah.
So maybe that difference in role and friendship now, could be used as another galvanising tool. I intentionally stayed away from comparing it to McCarthy because I don't know if you can really compare a teammate to a coach. I guess it's a different relationship in a way, I would imagine. So, but I mean, grief is grief and death is death, and it sucks at whoever it is. So, we'll soon. Time will tell, but I'm sure they'll be very motivated on Thursday night.
It's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah.
It will.
It's going to be interesting to see how the Crows recover in terms of their next couple of games. Obviously, they play us in 2 weeks' time. They play the Eagles, who will be mourning as well this weekend. And it's going to be hard to see. It's going to be difficult to work out how it's going to play out for the Crows and whether they... I mean, I think it's going to play out either two ways. They're either going to get absolutely thrashed off the park or they're going to absolutely thrash the Eagles off the park, I think.
I think it'll be the first one. I think the emotion will get to them. I can't see how it can't, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's very tough. And I mean, it would have been very tough for them to have fronted up. It was impossible, and I was glad the AFL made the call that they did and just took it out of their control.
Decision. Yeah.
Because I mean, they might have said, "Yeah, we can do it," and then the fatigue factor of playing AFL football sets in, and then coupled with the emotion, players could have just lost their cool or whatever, and and it would have been uncontrollable. So I thought it was very, it was very smart by the AFL.
It was very good of Geelong too to allow them not to have to forfeit and split the points.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they had to make that call, really, didn't they? I mean, you wouldn't want to be the team that said, no, you can forfeit everything with that. I mean, it just wouldn't have made any sense, sort of morally or anything like that. So.
It was a bad PR nightmare waiting to happen, because if it came out that the AFL sort of forced the Crows to play sort of when they weren't in a position, the AFL would have been smeared. And if if it came out that Geelong, took the 4 points because they refused to concede playing the game, they would have been smeared. So both entities had no choice really to do it. And but look, I think it's a fair result. It would have been tough. I mean, the AFL fixture's set in stone, so you can't really change it, can you?
No, you can't. It was definitely the right decision. Maybe if this occurred on a Monday or a Tuesday and they had 5 or 6 days to recover, then maybe they would have played the game, or maybe the AFL would have put it to them to play the game, but not when there's only 24 or 48 hours after the fact. It's it would have just been impossible for the players to get up and do what they have to do out on the field, and with that running through their mind. I mean, it was definitely the right decision. And I guess that leads me into the final question for this part is, obviously this is something that you would think will sort of help bond Port Adelaide and Adelaide supporters together. Certainly the two clubs, I think, will get a lot closer out of this as well. And do you think that's a good thing? Do you think we'll see the supporters sort of get a lot closer from this incident?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
You think it'll probably be... I mean, a lot of people are saying, we'll have sort of 2 weeks of hugs and kisses and then it'll just go back to normal.
Yeah. Novelty will wear off pretty quick, mate. Maybe it might last this year, but then after that, the Crows will start getting stuck into us again, and then they'll become Crows flogs.
As soon as one team starts an ascendancy over the other one, then the animosity will come back. But I think you're right. I reckon it will last for the rest of this season. There'll be a little bit more friendly banter on the forum and at the games, and the showdown's going to be a hell of an interesting showdown. And it's almost...
It's going to be an emotional time, I think.
Oh, completely. And it's... I'm almost as interested to see what goes on on the field as what gets planned prior to the game. I mean, I'm used to going to the footy and getting drunk and getting loud and having fun and being raucous, and it's
we
going
know
to be
that.
a different. Yeah,
We've seen that before. Bloody hell, out of control, this guy.
It's going to be difficult to do that at the showdown. Even this Thursday night, it's sort of a bit more of a somber occasion. So I think it's going to change the dynamic of those two games, especially.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I guess it's going to be something pretty special to be involved in. I guess from the two clubs' point of view, I guess, and I guess we'll leave it there and look. From the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast and Port Fan Radio crew, our deepest sympathies go out to Phil's family and friends and everyone involved at Port Adelaide and Adelaide and West Coast and the other people across the AFL that were close to Phil, and I really hope everyone involved can get the support they need out of this, and rest in peace, Phil. I think your legacy across the AFL is going to live on for generations to come.
Well said.
It's like a man's best party only happens when he dies. We gather round to pay our respects while their souls are still searching for the light, searching for the light.
All right. Well, to something a little less somber, but only a little. I guess we'll have a chat about the game and do our love and hate. One thing we loved, one thing we hated about Port Adelaide this week. Rick, do you want to start us off?
Oh, the Arch, my friend.
The Arch.
What a super full game by Brendan. I was pumped. Yes, his kicking at times was a little bit less than desired, but I think that's because he had the courage to try and kick on his left side. But I keep saying it. I said on Facebook, I said on Big Footy, I was texting you every 5 minutes saying he's got as good a handball as what Greg Williams had. I mean, and whoever did the GIF on Big Footy, I apologise, I don't remember your name, but that bump, spin, avoid tackle, handball past the player, but in front of him for that Ollie Wines to run onto it was just a majestic bit of play, and it was Greg Williams-esque. And I just think the thing I can see with Brendan is now he has the courage to go for the ball. I think in the previous years and even last year, not that he would say it, but I guess I got the feeling that he sort of was leaving it to the more named people, even in the SANFL level, to get the ball because they're such good players. And I think now he's just going, you know what? I see ball, I'm going to try and get ball. And, and he's not worrying about who the named players are. If the ball's there and there's an opportunity, it's great. And I think it's a reminder for supporters, Macca and Bomber, you would remember this, I'm sure, that 2 years ago was scrubbing a line through Brendan and go, no, he's not good enough. He's delist him. He was an underage kid, came in as a skinny 17-year-old, and had knee tendonitis, which he had to battle through. And the club's persevered, and they hopefully are going to receive the spoils of pumping the time and experiencing the Brendan. And I think he was like Nathan Cracker, is a shining light for this season.
No doubt.
Definitely.
Yeah. He had a great game, and look, his kicking needs improvement, there's no doubt about that, but that handball, especially the one you mentioned, I mean, I had to pretty much stop myself from putting my hand down my pants at that point. It was bloody ridiculous.
Disgraceful.
Absolutely ridiculous. I honestly thought he was going to get tackled, and then I saw him dish off this handball. I thought, that's going to go 2 metres in front of Wines, and he just hit it perfectly so Wines didn't have to change stride, and it was perfect. And I love the way he hunts the ball. He's always at the bottom of that pack, trying to dish out the ball and try and get it. It's fantastic.
It is awesome. And I guess I hated, boys, our dysfunctional defence. Where has our coordinated defence gone? And I'm banging on about it, but our loose man, Brad Ebert, in the first quarter was playing it a little bit as well, is sitting way too high and is not clogging the space in front of the leading target. And the amount of ball that Sydney delivered to leading targets in space was doing my head in. And if you're going to put your hand down your pants over Brendan Archie, I was going to put my head through the TV. I was that bloody frustrated. It was very, very frustrating. There's no way that Sydney should have had that much time and space and free players inside their forward 50 as what they did on Thursday night.
No, it wasn't pretty. It certainly wasn't pretty. There was probably 2 or 3 occasions where Kennedy got free on the lead, and Sam Reid has kicked 3 goals for the season, and he kicked 3 goals in the first half against Jack Homch, who's been just about unbeatable so far this year. So, yeah, it was probably the defence's worst game for the season, I would say.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Alapati looked like he was struggling to even lift his feet off the ground. So Jonas, I'm convinced Jonas has an injury. He doesn't look like he can even move or twist.
Yeah, he wasn't. It wasn't pretty out there.
He can't kick.
No.
Well, no one can at the moment. I don't know why.
Mm.
Yeah, well, this is. I don't want to bang on about it too much. I don't want to steal your Rose thunder, but it's been going on for like the last 6 weeks. Even our 20-metre kicks are all falling short. All our kicks are falling short. Are we too lackadaisical? Is that what it is? The old myth is if you're kicking the ball over someone's head all the time, it's the adrenaline kicking in and causing you to overkick the ball. Is it the opposite? Are we too relaxed and too lackadaisical and too complacent with our disposal? But the kicks, and Westhoff seems to be a notorious one for that one.
Mm. Yeah, you've pretty much stolen my hate there, so I might as well go. That's all right. My hate was our skills, quite simply. It was our skills were a bit of a joke out there, and it's questionable whether they're even AFL standard right now. And as you said, lazy kicks are pretty much my issue. I mean, there were so many lazy 20-metre passes that didn't hit the target that, half volleyed to the player, put them under so much pressure. It must have happened 15 or 16 times out there, and it's just not good enough. I mean, these are kicks under no pressure at all that you should be hitting the target every time. There is no excuse why you cannot hit a 20-metre target kicking sideways into the corridor.
Yeah.
When you've taken a mark and you're under no pressure at all. It shouldn't happen. Jonas did it about 6 times. I reckon Westhoff did it 3 or 4 times. Everyone did it out there. Boak did it, Broadbent, Gray. I mean, everyone was culpable for that.
Yeah, I saw the Hoon and Moore in the last quarter, and it was just ridiculous. Exactly as you said, Macca, that chipping back into the corridor, a simple, I reckon I could have dobbed it. And it's like they're coming off the side of the boot every time.
It's just laziness. It's just pure laziness. I mean, and you can tell because they do it off one kick, off one step. They sort of go back, they take one step, ball drops short. I mean, it happens every time. It shouldn't happen. It needs to be ironed out pretty quick, and it's not good enough for AFL standard. It's debatable whether it's even good enough for SANFL standard.
It looked like SANFL standard, and I guess it's frustrating because we were in that game, and we should have been in that game considering their injuries and suspensions, and and we were on top, and it's really it's just sloppy and disappointing, but that's been our season.
It has. Look, my love was I loved seeing some aggression out there, and even though we couldn't handle Sydney lifting their game after the big tackle and the bump happened, it was great to actually see us throw our bodies in and hit the packs hard and lay a couple of crunching tackles for once.
How weak was Broady's attempted aggression at the man? I mean, come on, at least knock the injured guy over or something. I
didn't mind that at all. He was just letting him know he was there. It was like, yeah, come on, I'm here. And
it looked a lot worse than it was because Parker grabbed his leg and held onto his leg for about 5 seconds. And it made it look like he was sort of trying to bump him for 5 seconds. But I don't know. It looked pretty stupid to me, but
I actually didn't mind it. I just couldn't work out was he trying to hump his leg like a dog, or what was he actually trying to achieve there? Because he didn't really go around it the right way. I was just looking at it going, Brody, what the hell are you doing? At least
He should have jumped off the turnbuckle with an elbow to the back of the head.
Yeah, punch him in the face or something. If you're going to be aggressive, just get into it, mate.
And I also I've got to say, I love the fact that Schultz didn't get any weeks for that tackle, which surprised me greatly.
I don't know. I was hoping he'd get one.
Only one. I was hoping he'd get
I have to say, I'm a little bit confused about that because I can't see the difference in movement. I get what people are saying. There's a little bit of it was slightly less intentional, but there wasn't much in it.
It was a bit more of a fluid movement. Yeah, it was a bit more of a fluid movement, but not by much. There was still, 1.5 actions compared to sort of 2 actions with Gibbs. And I don't know, it's just a strange decision, and you can understand why people get frustrated. And I can certainly understand why Gibbs is frustrated because, they were quite similar, and one guy gets 2 weeks, the other guy gets nothing. For the same result. They both got knocked out, both got stretchered off the field.
Do you reckon that they would have taken into account Schultz's response after and Gibbs's response after?
Probably not, I don't think. No, I don't think so.
Someone mentioned it on the forum, and it did, to me, that was actually the most telling difference between the two tackles, is the tackling player's response to the after effect.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there was as much of a sling. It sort of started in a different spot. So Bryce has really pulled him around and then slung him right down to the ground recklessly head first. Whereas Jay sort of just brought him down onto his stomach, and it was just unlucky that. There didn't seem to be that much impact at all with the head. Maybe he's got a soft skull or something, but it's...
Well, on that point, neither did Gray's. I mean, it didn't look like Gray's head hit the ground that hard with the Gibbs tackle as well, but it's just maybe where the head got hit, what part of the skull sort of hit the ground first, I guess.
I disagree with that, because Gibbs was... if you try and liken Gray's... Gray's sort of did fall head first, almost sort of like a quasi sort of a spear tackle, and whereas Jay's was just sort of flat parallel. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, I thought Gibbs should have got games, and I did actually think Schultz should have got off, but I was expecting Schultz to get games from a consistency perspective because of the injury. So.
It was also interesting, I thought, that Sydney's response to that in terms of physicality, we were very critical on the podcast and on the forum of Port's lack of physicality to Gibbs' tackle. But, I mean, Sydney didn't do anything after that either. They just went about their business and won the game. And that was the difference. We allowed Carlton to kick, 6 out of the next 8 goals, and, Sydney kicked 4 goals in 8 minutes and it was game over.
And that's where it was sad. We just stopped. Well, it was just like we had our breather, and good job, boys. Let's just stop now. And Sydney just went bang, bang, and bang.
That's it.
That old
Bomber. No, absolutely. Bomber, what were your love and hate for this week?
Well, look, Rick stole my love. That was the Archie's handball. That was. It was so sublime. It was the equivalent of Impey's pick up and goal from last year. It's just so seamless, and the way he levered his arm around, collected the ball just in one movement. It was great. And I think that from memory, that ended up in a shot on goal that we missed, or Chad just dobbed it short. But I loved that. My hate was just the sheer frustration of watching the game. It was a really hard game to watch. And I know Jasper cops it, but I don't understand why he he attracts most of the vitriol. I think he was far from our worst player on the night. He just is probably so visible.
Yeah, because he's got the courage. I'm with you. He's got the courage to take it on, and so he's the whipping boy.
And here we go again.
Yeah. Well, I've got a fellow defender of Jasper, so I need to highlight the flaws in people's unrealistic nature.
I didn't think Jasper had a good game at all, but there was still probably 12 or 13 players that played worse.
Yeah, and I think that's more my point, is that he's very easy to pick on because because he takes the risks. He's going to have those errors every now and then, and probably more so than those that don't take the risks. But I want to know what's happened to Ebert. Ebert just seems to be Mr. Invisible at the moment.
Wait, I think...
the same thing happened last year.
Hey. Steady on. Can I expand your question there, Bomber, if you don't mind me? Okay. I think you could ask the question not about what's happened to Ebert, but what's happened to our leadership group. Ebert, Travis Boat, Matt Lobey, Tom Jonas, they're all in there.
Hamish
Hartlett. And now they're all inconsistent and struggling. So can you rephrase your question, please, and ask it again?
So what's happened to those blokes?
Macca?
I mean, I've actually thought Hartlett's been reasonably good. I mean, I haven't seen...
Well, Hartlett played his best game probably for the year on the weekend.
Yeah, and he was aggressive, and that's what I like about his game. When he plays those aggressive games, and doesn't take a step back, he really takes the game on, and he's good to watch. Ebert and Jonas, to me, I mean, Jonas to me looks injured. Ebert doesn't look injured, but he just doesn't seem to be able to get the ball like he used to. Boak, I watch Boak. He's just, even if his numbers aren't up, he's in there. He's at every play and he's affecting every player. He's just in there. You can never. I don't think you could ever criticise good old Trevor for his efforts.
Do you think he's injured?
It's hard to tell.
No.
He did come off.
It is hard to say. I don't know. I don't think he's injured. I just think he's in a bit of a rut.
So we had a couple of tweets, boys. Bevan says, of course, Rick wins. Arch, the big body mid that we've been looking for. Thank you very much. Bevan also said, if you're going to do a 15-metre lazy kick, give it to the Arch for a handball for 20 metres. I agree with that too. And Scott S. feels sick watching Tom Jonas, such a great player who looks shot mentally and does not want to be out there. And, well, I've got to say, my son thinks that I hate Tom Jonas as a player, and I don't hate Tom Jonas. I just think that he needs to go because he's not in form. And I want him back because in form, Tom Jonas is a fantastic player. But at the moment, and I say this with all integrity and hand on my heart, he's a liability. And until he can get his form back, he has to go back. And the coaches, buddy, oh my God, Ken, I love you, and I love the fact that you have faith in your players, but they're letting you down, man. And there has to be a bit of accountability here at some stage. And I know Portia said last week we need to have the players to replace them, but at the same time, something has to happen. We can't keep putting up with it.
No. It is spot on. And look, it's fair enough that Kenny has faith in the players. And look, Tommy Jonas for 2 years hasn't really put a foot wrong. But this year he's badly out of form. I would almost go as far as saying he's as out of form as I've ever seen any AFL player in my time watching football. He just looks absolutely shot mentally. Every time he goes near it, something bad happens. And it might sound harsh, but that's the reality of where it is at the moment. And as I said last week or the week before, I actually think it's doing more harm than good, keeping him in the side and putting him through this at the moment. And it was even worse, the fact that he was mic'd up with Channel 7. I mean, who authorised that decision? That's if you could have picked the worst possible player in the worst possible form to go through that sort of thing, you'd be picking Tommy Jonas.
In a crunch match too. I did not understand that decision at all.
Any player, any other player, I'd much preferred Andrew Moore to sit on the bench and be mic'd up, to be honest.
Could we put a petition to get Justin Westhoff mic'd up?
He doesn't say much though, does he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's what I want to do.
Just be silent.
That'd be funny. It'd be hilarious. Let's get it going.
Well, look, let's get on and talk a bit more about the game. And look, not only do we say Vale to Phil Walsh, we say Vale to season 2015, I think, after we lost to a pretty injury-riddled Sydney, who beat us by 10 points, 14 goals 10 to 12 goals 12. Chatty Wingard once again led the scoring for about the fifth week in a row. With 3 goals, Westhoff and Cracker kicked 2 goals each. I think it was a bit of a mixed bag out there between periods of some pretty impressive play by Port Adelaide and periods where we looked pretty amateur out there, and in the end it was, I guess, another case this year of, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but just didn't.
No.
Yeah, I think given if we'd won maybe, if we'd beaten Brisbane and Carlton and maybe West Coast, we probably would have worn that 10-point loss to Sydney in Sydney, and wouldn't have thought too much of it. I thought the game itself was really frustrating to watch. And it was surprising in the end that we got so close. I did think we were going to nab it at one point, but unfortunately not. Yeah, I don't know. It was a strange game to watch. There was times when I think in the game day thread I was posting very excitedly that things had started to click, and there was a couple of those plays goal to goal where you just got the sense that, hold on, we're taking control of this game. Whereas last year we would have run away and kicked away and won the game, we just haven't been able to get that happening this year, which is probably where the frustration comes from.
Yeah, look, I mean, third quarter we kicked 2 goals to start the quarter. We were in front by a point. Then Schulze knocks out Teddy Richards, and the game just changed in that instant. They kicked something like, I don't know, 4 goals, 1 to end the quarter to nothing. And I don't know, at that point in the game, we were right in the contest. We were doing everything we had to do to stay in the game. Look, we were getting beaten in the midfield. Our forward entries probably weren't all that great, but we were making the most of them. And despite the fact that Sam Reid got away from Jack Hompsch in the first half and kicked 3 first half goals, we really did sort of tighten up on their forwards to start that third quarter, and then it just went all downhill.
It was very depressing. It was one of those games of momentum. It looked like we were going to be chasing our tail. We did get teased in that third quarter. But I guess the warning signs were there throughout the game. We did lack accountability around the midfield. Once again, for the 1000th time, Mr. Kennedy just tears us a new one. We don't seem to have a system in place to actually try and play him in the last 8 years. We just let him do whatever he wants. And you knew that Adam Goods was going to pop up and fill in the void of the 2 key forwards because he's just that good a player, whether you like him or not. But yeah, look, structurally we just look deficient. I was watching, for a change, a couple other games on TV, and I was watching ruck contests and the ruckmen, they're tapping the ball to advantage to the midfielders, and there's some good set plays there, and I don't see anything. We don't have any structure around the ball. We've lost our defensive structure, which was our key pillar at the start of the year. I mean, what happened to Matthew Nicks being the man in demand? And as we know, we've got no forward line. It's just fallen to bits. And I think it goes deeper than losing Phil Walsh or Alan Richardson. But I almost feel like we need to find a scapegoat at the end of the year to almost send a wake-up call to everybody that, you know what, fellas, if you don't pull your finger out, this is what happens. And it will be interesting if something like that does happen.
It's frustrating because it's almost like we've regressed back to 2012 where we have these sort of 10 or 15 minute bursts where we look like a competent football team and look like we could beat anybody on any given day, and then for the rest of the time we just look like utter garbage. And that might sound harsh, but you know, when you, as we said earlier, when you're missing sort of so many 20-metre kicks, and you know, when you're just tapping the ball down the opposition midfielders' throats every time you get a bloody hit out, I mean, it's just gets to the point of ridiculousness.
Or not even competing in the ruck. Like, you know, I think that happened in the Carlton game where Lobby just missed getting set up for the throw in, and it resulted in a goal. And you think stuff like that's amateur time. And to me, he's probably one of the big disappointments of this year as well. I thought he played really well last year, but this year he just hasn't done it. I think the thing that got me with the Sydney game is that, as I said before, we looked like we were going to nab it a couple of times, and then just we didn't get the momentum, or we didn't keep the run happening, and we just fell in a heap. And I was a bit sceptical of the calls of we're not fit or we've lost our fitness early in the year, but that's all I can put it down to. Everything I'm seeing looks like a lack of fitness, because they're driving themselves into the ground to get within a couple of goals in the last quarter, and then everything falls over. They lose their skills. And it can't just be down to Pollock and Matty White being missing.
No.
Maybe it's Mitchell. We need Mitchell back.
No. I don't know what it is. I think it's between the years now. I think we've just been devoided of confidence to the point where it's almost irreparable for 2015. I think the calls, though, that, you know, we need a mass clean out are very premature. I wouldn't go that far. I just think we need some clever drafting and some smart trading. And like I just said, I think we need to maybe have a scapegoat. I know it sounds silly.
Draw straws?
No, I'm happy to nominate someone, if you like.
Who would you nominate?
Matt Lobey.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's no offence, Matt. I'm sure you don't listen. But I think he's probably the sort of player that could attract interest because of his size.
Yeah.
But I think he's not really a great tap ruckman. And Macca and I have been banging on it ever since we started this show that he can't take a mark to save his life. I think we're better off maybe running first ruck with Ryder, seeing if we can jag a first round pick for Matt Lobey, and using that to get two first rounders, or to up trade to try and get a key forward that might be available or possible out of one of the fringe teams. I think that, you know, this is something we might have to be willing to do, and it might be enough that it might make the players wake up and go, oh, shit, well, yeah, Ken's serious, and if we don't pull our finger out, this is what could happen. And I understand the team harmony and the team dynamics and affecting morale and all that sort of stuff, but sometimes you got to do it.
I mean, our midfield setups have been pretty poor all year, and look, fair call to the two ruckmen. I mean, they dominated the hit-outs. They had nearly double the hit-outs from what Sydney had, and it was a stark turnaround from the first match this year where we just got absolutely pantsed in the ruck. But it's no good when you have nearly double the hit-outs, but you still lose the clearances. I mean, that just does your head in.
We have no method there. That's what I was saying before. Especially, sorry about my chair. I apologise. But
the squeaky chair is back.
The squeaky chair is back. I've punched out 2 tax returns while we've done this podcast, though. How cool is that? I'm multitasking. People keep coming online to our website and asking to do a tax return. So I go, yeah, sure, no dramas. But we're lacking structure. We just got no structure. We're not winning taps to advantage. It's just messy. I don't know. It's where do we go? We need to do something, And this was very unexpected. I was not expecting we would be having this conversation.
No, it's pretty disappointing. I guess I want to have a chat about some individual players and talk about their form at the moment. And I guess the first one's Paddy Wright. He came back into the side and, look, 2 kicks, 2 marks for the game. It was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, it was funny because I felt like I saw him a lot in the play, but he obviously wasn't getting to the ball. And there was a couple of bombs into the forward 50 that he should have marked them, but he just wasn't in right position or hadn't sort of outbodied the defender. And I thought, that's surely why we got him. We got him because he's a big bastard and he can sit there and he can outbody most of the defenders that he gets stuck on. I would have thought, along with the ruck work, that taking those marks in the forward 50 is part of his role.
Yeah, we just didn't provide anything offensively at all. Look, I thought his ruck work was probably the best of any ruckman on the park, but we just need more than that. We've already got that with Lobie. We don't need another ruckman that can't get a kick, sort of thing. So,
well, he got singled out on the Fox pretty badly. They weren't impressed with his efforts at all. So,
I really thought that would have been a game which would have suited his style of play, especially if we were playing him out of the square and just getting it in long. Especially when Richards went down, I thought, this might be the chance for us, to get some long, deep inside 50s in and try and take some contested grabs pretty deep, but just didn't happen.
No, maybe the wider things sort of playing on his mind. It's really weird. I don't know. It's almost like there's a bit of disharmony in the group. Does that make sense? They're not playing as much for each other as they have in previous years. But when you listen to them,
probably because they're under the pump now and they're really
pressure's
under
on.
the pump and the pressure's on, and they can't really afford to stuff up. And I think when you have that sort of mentality in anything you do, whether it's like a normal job or sport, if you're worrying about stuffing up, then you tend to always stuff up.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something going on. We're the Bermuda Triangle of AFL football this season. Well, how bad's Essendon going this year?
I can't say I've even watched a game of theirs this year.
Yeah, but the question is, if you ranked Essendon, how bad are they? Are they on the nose?
No, they'd be bottom 3. Yep.
Yeah, well, we're only one win ahead of them. Wow. And we're equal with St Kilda.
Geez, who would have picked that at the beginning of the year?
Not many at all. That's for sure.
And if it makes you feel better, North Melbourne's only one game ahead of us, so we're not the only disappointment in the AFL this year. So that's a good thing. We can always try and pass the buck on to North, but. Yeah, I guess that's got to put it into perspective of how bad we are travelling. St Kilda's equal with us and just off by percentage.
Yeah. Well, look, moving on. Angus Monfries, is he out of form or is he a victim of the role that he's being asked to play in the side? Because he's really struggled to have any sort of impact in the last couple of weeks.
That's a good question. It's disappointing because you sort of expect him to. He's one of those players that can create a bit of play. It's exciting when you see the ball go towards him, but the last few games, I haven't seen that at all. It's just he seems to be more focused on locking his player down.
Yeah. And look, he did a good job of that. Reece Shaw didn't really have any sort of impact on the play at all, but I don't know. I mean, with where we are at the moment, I don't think we can afford to have a player inside our forward 50 that's sole job is to shut down an opposition play. They need to kick goals as well.
We need anyone to kick goals at the moment. I can't believe how off our goal radar is. some of the goals that we're missing at the moment, just last year would have sailed through the middle. And I was talking to my brother a couple of weeks ago about this and saying, in some ways, this year is almost the opposite year we had in 2007, where nothing could go wrong for us. You know, we got over the line and we won so many close games just by getting over the line. This year we've got the exact opposite, where we're getting close but not getting the 4 points. And it's I think that's that's probably the worst thing about this year. Is I think that I reckon there's probably three to four games that I think we should have won and could have won if we'd kicked straighter. And I know,
no doubt,
bad kicking's bad football, as they say. But there's that Carlton game we should have won. I reckon we should have beaten Brisbane, and I seriously think we're in a position, if we could have put pressure on Sydney to win that game just by doming a few of those goals.
Yeah. As I said in the intro, coulda, shoulda, but didn't. I mean, it's been the story of our season, really. You look at that, I mean, even the Richmond game where we kicked 5 goals, 13, and even though we lost by 4 or 5 goals, I mean, you turn that around and, we could have definitely been in a chance of winning that game. But I guess that's sort of the story of the season, is just wasteful play and maybe a bit of laziness. Maybe we got a little bit too cocky in the pre-season, and we've paid the price.
See, I don't think so, because if we got cocky in the pre-season, we wouldn't have been sitting at 3-2, right? And I remember you and Tribey were slapping each other on the back, and I was going, boys, come on, let's remember I wanted 4-1. This is pretty bad. And you guys were going, 3-2, we're rocking, man. We're going to do well here. And part of me,
you were letting off bloody party poppers, mate. What are you talking about?
Fireworks. But I do think I think maybe the boys got ahead of themselves, like the press, going, they're going to win the next easy 10 games now. It's just going to, fait accompli. And, I don't know. It's really, the fall has been dramatic. And I think has coupled from the style of play they're all playing. Has there been a season where our style of play has been so dramatically curtailed in the AFL? It's like, even though we didn't win the premiership, it seems like everyone is trying to work out a way to stop our style of play compared to the Sydney or the Hawthorn, or is Sydney and Hawthorn and Freo's unstoppable?
It helps when you can hit targets, Rick. I think that's the main point, is that Hawthorn, Sydney, Freo are excellently skilled, elite skilled players, elite skilled team. We're just nowhere near that at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you can come up with all sorts of reasons for our downturn, but I genuinely think our lack of skill at the moment is probably the number one reason why we're struggling so much, because we just turn it over so much. I'm not sure of the stats. I'd love to find out what our score from turnovers is. I reckon we'd be pretty much bottom or leading the pack of that in terms of against. I reckon we would have given up the most score from turnovers in the league, I reckon.
And the irony is that they're hell bent on trying to stop those. That's why they have those chip around the back, dinky kicks in the back lines. It's to try and get over the press, so that.
That's fair enough too.
Watch the Hawthorn Adelaide game, and Hawthorn, they controlled that game beautifully. Like they played that tempo, slow the game down, control it. It was like they were going at third speed, just kick, and then just put their foot down when they needed to. And it was a real eye opener to the standard that we need to get to, because I haven't seen us play like that. I don't think ever.
No. Well, that's the disappointing thing, because that was all the talk in the pre-season, especially after we lost that prelim final, pretty much because of our skill level and our poor kicking at goal and the amount of turnovers that we gave up that night. That was all the talk in the pre-season. We're going to spend so much more time on the skills. We're doing double the work on skills as what we did, last year, and we've got absolutely nothing to show for it at the moment.
Hence my post the other day, should we just go back to basics and just go, you know what, no glam this year, boys. We're just going to stay at Alberton and we're just going to work our butts off? Or is it too primitive and too old school and it's too much of a disadvantage doing that and they should still go to Dubai?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's why they get paid a lot of money, is to make those decisions, I guess. I don't know if... It's really hard to say. I mean, you really need to be able to put a finger on why we've performed so poorly this year. And did we overtrain in the preseason? Do we not have the run in our legs? Is that why we're struggling to hit targets this year? And I mean, that could be very much the reason why we are struggling. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I think there's valid reasons why we shouldn't go to Dubai. But then I think there's also valid reasons why we should continue to do it. But you've got to find that balance between doing a lot of running and actually, honing your skills, because that's what's going to win your games. If you can't kick, you can't play. Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just think the old school punishment of, okay, well, let's just go back to basics, bread and butter, work on skills, running. I mean, crying out loud, it's bloody hot over here anyway. So, maybe that's their punishment. You don't get the dessert because you didn't do what you were told. It's interesting. It's in a way, I thought 2015 was going to be a defining season for us, but I think for this playing group as a whole, 2016 is going to be a massive defining season. And
definitely.
I could, if it goes this way again next year, I think there's going to be a lot of heads that roll, and but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a dip year that sometimes teams have. I'm not going to compare it to the Geelong year, but I do think we're just having a dip year because our boys are much better than what they're showing at the moment.
I definitely agree with that. And I know I'm a Port supporter and I'm biased, but I do think that they're playing underneath their ability. It's definitely. I don't think it's a case that we played above our ability last year. We had some luck go our way, most definitely, but I think over the course of the season and through the finals last year, we definitely played to our ability. This year's. That's why it's so disappointing. I think that this year was just we had that opportunity, and that lead in the start for the season could have worked so well for us. But,
Well, hopefully we get an easier draw next year.
Maybe that's our ultimate plan. We're gunning.
Well, I like the tough draws because I'm a big fan. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. Yeah. So, to me, I actually like this year's draw. But obviously it's exposed us and cracked us wide open. So, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that good after all.
At least we now know where the cracks are.
Well, he's playing half-back flank at the moment.
In the back line at the moment.
Oh, Macca was so funny.
Oh, God. That's not annoying at all.
Actually, talking about Cracker, though, I've got to say, I do think that maybe he should be up forward or on a wing. I like his disposal on the half-back line. But he does seem to lack a little bit of defensive accountability.
Oh, look, he got burned by Kennedy in that first quarter, but, I mean, that's not really a matchup that I would have ever sort of imagined happening, sort of Nathan Cracker playing on Josh Kennedy, so I don't know, it's I think they tactically got that one a little bit wrong, I think, but look, I mean, the issue with Nathan Cracker moving away from defence is that he's probably our only decent kick in the back line at the moment. So,
he should
take him away, and he shouldn't be. But
Brody used to be a great kick.
He used to, but he's not at the moment. And you can say the same about all of them. I mean, Jonas has never been a great kick, but he knew his limitations, and he could still hit targets. I mean, Carlisle has always been okay. I don't know. It's a bit disappointing at the moment. So the issue is you take him away from defence, and what's going to happen?
He might kick goals. Might kick it to. He might.
You've got to get it up there first.
He might kick it to a leading forward. I don't know. AFL football, there isn't really defined positions anymore, anyway. Is there? Let's face it. Look, it's. I mean, everyone just runs around everywhere. I just think it's just a real. I don't know. It's a really average game style they're delivering this year in quality. It's just mini league stuff, and it's. I said on the forums, it's hard to watch, to be honest. And it's not because Port's just losing. I have real minimal interest in watching other teams play because it's just flood around the ball carrier or flood around a 60-metre perimeter of the team if it's in their half-back line. So you're just congesting the next kick. It's, we're almost turning into rugby union, which is where our game spawned from. And it was interesting, Nathan Buckley referred to a pack as a rolling maul the other day.
Well, basically he is at the moment.
Yeah, which is rugby. But anyway, I could waffle on for hours, and we've already done our hour.
That's it. We shall say farewell for the evening. Bomber, thank you very much for coming on.
No probs. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully next time it's a bit of a more happy evening, I guess.
And you shouldn't leave it so long to join us for the season. You should come on more often, Bomber.
Come on the radio.
On Port Fan Radio.
Yeah, definitely.
That was my joke after forgetting you came on earlier in the year. Again, my humour just goes down like a lead balloon.
Was that humour?
That was my joke. That was my joke, Macca. Well, you keep leaving me hanging out for dry. When are you going to support my humour?
If I actually knew that was humour, then it might have been a bit different.
I was going to say, you need a sign you can send through, like a hashtag, flag the joke's coming.
Just send me a text when you're about to do a joke and then I'll make sure I laugh.
Oh, you guys are so funny.
Rick, as always, buddy, it's been great.
Pleasure. Looking forward to Wednesday. Hopefully I won't be as rushed, so I might be able to crack a few funnies this time.
That's it. All right, boys. Until next time.
Power!
Count the ports.